Hello and welcome to Talking WoW, the podcast where we talk about World of Warcraft, believe it or not. My name is Tom, and today we are going to be talking about the best cinematics in World of Warcraft. But also here to do that is the co-host of Talking WoW, Marty. Hello, Marty.
Hello there. We're recording a podcast episode together today about cinematics, and it feels like it's been a while since we've sat down and actually record something.
It does. I don't even know if I got this intro right. It's just, at the back of my mind how to even do this anymore. But, let's press on and see if we can actually remember how to record a podcast episode. And yeah, there's been so many cinematics in World of Warcraft, Marty, hasn't there?
There has no doubt been a lot of cinematics. There's been some great cinematics. There's also been some not so great ones along the way as well. But there's been a few.
Yeah, we're going to talk about our favorites and some from the community as well that, are right here. And I'm pointing at my heart on my chest right now for because you can't see me do that. But yes, and I mean, I'm going to start, Marty. I'm going to start with what is the best cinematic in World of Warcraft. Without a question of a doubt, nobody can possibly argue with this fact. And it has to be the one, the only, the cinematic that you do not skip when you're farming for Invincible because it's just so good. It's the fall of the Lich King, Marty.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good one, I suppose. I mean,
you suppose it's the best. It's the best, and I will die on that hill that this is the best cinematic in WoW, because that music, that Invincible music that plays, Arthas there, his father holding him, is it over, father? It's just, you're getting chills right now. You're getting chills right now, Marty. I can see it in your eyes. You're getting chills, even me just mentioning this.
I have to say that it is an absolutely great cinematic to end off, such an awesome expansion as well, where we've been following the Lich King, or rather he's been following us around for the whole expansion. And yeah, what an end to such a great adventure.
Yeah, and I like that we just totally forget that Ruby Sanctum ever exists after that, because
which one? What place?
So yeah, the fall of the Lich King, definitely up there for me. And like you say, Marty, it was that cherry on top of just what an incredible expansion it had been, and just the climax of this story of the Lich King, which started in Warcraft 3. It started even before World of Warcraft was a thing, and even looking back now all these years, it's still up there as the cinematic that is my go-to. Is like I'm saying, I'm farming Invincible, and I almost don't want to skip the cinematic. I want to watch it again. I want to watch it every time. That. But yeah, when that music kicks in, that's it. I'm a sucker. I'm just all over this. But Marty, you have a different favorite cinematic, don't you?
I do, because when you said we need to do an episode about the best cinematics, the first one that popped into my head was a quite emotional moment. And it
was it the cinematic that happens when you unlock your garrison in Warlords of Draenor?
So yeah, the first and best cinematic that popped into my head was the one from Legion. A very heartfelt, emotional moment where Ysera is actually killed. I mean, when I saw that the first time, and probably if we watched it now, I'm pretty sure that someone is cutting onions in the kitchen or something when I watched that one.
Yeah, and I think again, Legion, great expansion, and I think the Ysera death moment was actually quite a surprise. I know for myself, it was just totally unexpected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I for one didn't see it coming, and I think that's what that cinematic and the whole quest line as well did so well, that I feel like we often just go through games like this, and I'm like, all these heroes that are named that we are playing alongside, they're invincible. They can't die, right? That would be like, you're gonna kill a character that's been part of the lore for such a long time, right? So that one just
then Legion came along, and suddenly all the characters were dying, and it was just, I mean, maybe we shouldn't have been surprised by the fact that actually happened, because like we're saying, Legion was pretty pretty hard when it came to like, removing some pretty top tier characters there. And, Ysera was another one of those. And yeah, just a real shock and a real like heartfelt moment just seeing, Ysera passing on to the afterlife there as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it also just, adds something to the whole story and the whole universe that, we have these characters that we care about. And when there is war involved, people will die. Even, the best heroes, everyone has an expiration date.
And it's not just our opinions on the best cinematic. We actually reached out to the community, as we do sometimes, and we got some feedback there, which we're going to share with you right now. And I'm going to kick us off because speaking of emotional cinematics, Marty, another emotional cinematic. This is from Neek. Maybe it's recency bias. I like the War Within cinematic. There were so many subtle hints and callbacks, and it had a huge emotional weight. And I know Marty, we've talked about this fairly recently when we did a bit of a reaction episode to the War Within cinematic. But yeah, just those ones that really get you in the feels, isn't it? It's just, oof. I think those are the ones that you remember the most.
Absolutely. I mean, that cinematic is definitely up there in my top, 5, 10, something. It's definitely up there. It's so good. And as Nick said, there's so many subtle hints. And it's one of those cinematics, you can rewatch it a few times and you can, find small new bits and hints here and there as well in it. And it's just so good. And it just shows character development as well for all the characters involved in it. And it's so good.
And I think as well, it just shows that we don't always need Michael Bay directing every cinematic. We don't need explosions. We don't need explosions or flashy lights all the time. Sometimes it's just, a connection between two characters can be absolutely massive.
Next up, we have Sleepy Joe Gaming, who said that this is the best and always will be the best. And the cinematic he's talking about is the cinematic to the expansion Wrath of the Lich King. So the one where Arthas races into Gosa, right?
Yes. I mean, what a classic as well. And I think, I was talking about the fall of the Lich King, but the opening chapter of that was this expansion cinematic, which I think when you place that one, at the front and the fall of the Lich King at the end, it's like, whoa, perfect bookends to, that story of Arthas. And again, just chilling that, seeing Arthas in his power, in his glory, the fact that he's raising up Sindragosa, he's leading this army of Scourge, and, we're sitting there anticipating what is going to happen. And I think it was just such an epic way to kick off Wrath of the Lich King. And again, so many things that made Wrath of the Lich King what it was, and I think those cinematics were key in just the flavor of what was to come there.
Absolutely have to agree. Hard agree on that. So sorry, really bad podcasting. We just agree.
It's awful podcasting today.
Why are you still listening?
Well, Marty, you might not agree with this next one because, well, you probably will. From the lovely, wonderful Clodar. And Clodar says, at the end of Nightfall, after you take Gul'dan down and a certain pair of wings swoosh open behind him, gave me chills.
I mean, Illidan is amazing. I'm so happy that they brought him back. I know that it's probably a little bit controversial to some people, but I actually really liked the whole switcheroo that they did with Illidan, and the cinematic was so good. It's one of those moments where through the expansion, because this happened like a few patches in, so through the expansion we knew that Illidan would be returning, but we hadn't seen it yet, and that just seeing those wings unfold, I can understand you would get chills from that.
It was a real fan service expansion, Legion, but I'm here for it because it just brought us moments like that, and seeing Illidan again with the skull of Gul'dan in his hands, just that, full circle moment. It was just really well done, I think, and a great way to bring Illidan back into the fold.
Next up, we have Victory Venus, who says, it's Safe Haven for me. Safe Haven, I rewatched that recently, and it is so good, actually. It is really good. It's just two old buddies meeting up, and stuff happens. It's a little bit Michael Bay-ish, and it's great. It also has heartfelt moments. It's like best of both worlds.
Yeah, it's like the war within, but then it meets, some action as well, and Thrall being in there again. And I think as well that cinematic in particular had quite a big impact, because Chris Metzen, who voices Thrall, obviously he had been away from Warcraft for a while. He'd retired from World of Warcraft, and seeing him back, voicing Thrall again, and just seeing, in that cinematic Thrall with his family in Draenor, I believe they were, and just, it was very like symmetrical maybe to like how Chris was living his life, outside of World of Warcraft, having retired. So yeah, beautiful moment. And well, got a bit of action in there as well. Got a few weapons swinging and skulls crushed, and that is the orc way. So you wouldn't expect any less.
I just love that scene as well, because I think it's the first time in cinematics we actually seen rogues in action, and just seeing them go go into stealth, go invisible, and yeah, it's so good. And I wholeheartedly agree as well that I think Thrall, is mirroring Metzen's life quite a bit. But I mean, these characters are also, just in their world, normal people. They are not like, we see them as heroes, but at the end of the day, they are just normal people living in the world. So why wouldn't they also have normal everyday problems, right?
Well, there we go. Yeah. And, also seeing those rogues in the cinematic, bad rogues, you got to remain unseen there. Up next is Liger Wolf, who says, Siege of Orgrimmar.
I don't remember this one.
You don't remember this one? Well, let me refresh you, Marty. It's when your man Gary, Garrosh, he is defeated in Siege of Orgrimmar, and it's basically the Horde and Alliance are like discussing bringing him to justice. And I believe there's a moment, where was it Varian like walks up and he's about to attack him, and Thrall again in one of these cinematics, Doomhammer blocks the sword of Varian, and then there's the discussion of what to do with Garrosh, and that leads to onto like the War Crimes books, and well, then we know what happened after that. Time travel. And yeah, just again, I think it was one of those moments in Warcraft that opened a door to future expansions and future stories as well. And again, just at that height of Alliance and Horde conflict too.
Yeah. I remember now. Sorry, my mind blanked for a second when I just read Siege of Orgrimmar. Did that?
It's been a long time, Marty. I mean, but Mists of Pandaria, and and you're not getting any younger, so and that's just quite a way in the past. So you are forgiven that it took a minute to refresh your memory there.
Thank you. But yeah, no, that is good. It's always interesting, at least back in those days, to see when Horde and Alliance cross each other's paths, and to see how they decide this time to deal with their differences. Next up, we have Hoax. Gotta go with the BFA release, even though I didn't care much for the expansion.
Can you remember this one, Marty? Because that is not that long ago.
I do remember this one.
Okay, good. Because this is the Alliance army rolling up to the Undercity. This was a very epic cinematic as well. It's just after the burning of the World Tree, Tildrassil, and the Alliance are looking to take their revenge on the Horde for that action. And you've got that initial sort of pan over, and then the Alliance army coming in, and some great moments here with Sylvanas as well. And I think probably the one that sticks out in my head, even though I've mainly played Alliance, is just Sylvanas' wail when she screams like for the Horde, and just how that echoes and reverberates around the soldiers. And I think that is a great moment from like War Chief Sylvanas. She may not have like too many great War Chief moments, but I think like that is the War Chief moment where it's like, oh my God, like that rallying cry, even as someone that doesn't really play Horde, like I get chills just hearing that as well.
Absolutely. I loved that one so much. And I have to say that all the cinematics that came out around, those few moments are so freaking good. They're so good in storytelling. They're setting perfect scene. They're emotional as well. And so good. BFA definitely all around had some really, really good cinematics.
Yeah, I think I think BFA gets a bit of a bad rap, but there was something, underneath there that was really strong, especially that, that Horde and Alliance conflict and perhaps coming to a resolution with that. I think that was actually done fairly well. And, you have everything with Sauerfang in there as well. Some really, really deep and touching moments. And I think BFA really did actually capture a lot of that so very, very well. And next up, we have a previous guest of the show, and that is Sean from the podcast Recruit a Friend, who is boldly stating the only true answer is Wrathgate.
And he is definitely not the only one who thinks so, because we also have the meet on us saying, Sean knows this was the moment. Wow, hooked me.
And this is further endorsed by Brico, who says, the Wrathgate holds up after all these years, in my opinion. Marty, I have a question for you. Did you think we had forgotten it?
I did not, and I have not forgotten either. I know which one we're talking about. This was the first in-game cutscene that was ever made, and it is legendary. And obviously, we had to save this for last because Sean is onto something. This is probably one of the probably not the only true answer, Sean. I have to say that there are different true answers depending on who you are, but it is definitely.
Yeah, we couldn't possibly go on record and say that Sean was 100% right here, but maybe, slightly right. And, oh my God, again, we're coming back to the Lich King, Wrath the Lich King. And, we talked about the opening cinematic, the fall of the Lich King, and this sort of slotted in the middle, Marty, didn't it? This was sort of the middle act of the Lich King. And again, this was more back in the day as well, where I think not everything was so heavily data mined and we didn't really know what was coming with this. And I definitely remember experiencing this like in game, not being spoiled and just being like, oh my goodness.
I loved playing on alts and figuring out how to get to that cinematic the fastest. That was like what I did. I was figuring out, I just need to go here, do this quest, and then this quest, and then triggering the cutscene. So good.
And it's probably a bit good when you want to keep doing it all on, various alts as well, Marty. And we know you have, several hundred alts. So the fact that you didn't get bored with this after all that time definitely, speaks volumes for the quality of the cinematic. I mean, you could have just watched it on YouTube, but no, you persevered and played through.
That's the wrong way. My cinematics player is called World of Warcraft. That's why I watched them.
But yeah, this was again just a great moment as well. It was interesting because at one point it showed the unity of the Horde and the Alliance against the Lich King, only then to be betrayed by the Forsaken again. And that then, led to Battle of the Undercity and, more epic moments in Wrath the Lich King as well. But I think, again, you just think of those key moments in Wrath the Lich King, and this is another one of those, poor Bolvar getting put on the barbecue there. And we were really left in limbo of not knowing what was going to happen to him until the fall of the Lich King. And, him becoming the new Lich King from that. But I think that really set it up because you thought, oh, there's no way Bolvar is going to survive that. Or is he? And the fact that there was a bit of a mystery behind, I think his shield got left behind or something like that. And it was just like, okay, well, he's still in the picture. How's that going to play out? And I think that mystery, was a satisfying conclusion again in the fall of the Lich King. So the fact that how these all connected in together was really well done, I think.
Absolutely. Before we end completely, I just want to also quickly say, if you want to watch something else on YouTube, I can recommend, that has to do with cinematics, obviously. I can recommend to actually check out a YouTube channel called Philip Hartshorn Gaming, because he's a filmmaker. And he has recently gone through and watched a lot of the World of Warcraft cinematics. And it's amazing to, see how he begins and don't know anything about the lore and slowly is learning about the world, so he starts recognizing characters. He also gives a lot of, the music is doing this, so I think this will happen, and he's right 9 out of 10 times because he's a filmmaker, so you can figure these things out. And lastly, it sort of gives you sometimes you wish you could go back and watch something for the first time again. So it sort of gives that feeling where you watch it through their eyes instead. So I can absolutely recommend that. And maybe we should put a link down here in the comments somewhere, because it's really cool to watch if you're into the cinematics.
Yes, we will have a link in our show notes for that. And something else you can also do in places that you do that on social media or YouTube or whatever, you can leave us a comment. You can let us know your favorite cinematic in World of Warcraft. You can let us know what you thought of the cinematics that we brought to this episode. And that's all we had for you this time on Talking WoW. Thank you very much for tuning in. I've been Tom. That's been Marty. And we've been Talking WoW.
Thanks for tuning in, champion. Did you enjoy this episode of Talking WoW? If so, why not drop a review on your podcast catcher of choice, or leave us a comment. You can find Talking WoW on Twitter or YouTube over at Talking WoW. Hope to see you again soon.